What is economics? What do we do when we economize, and who can do that? What is economics? A subject that kills any dinner party, a hobby for rich people, math, statistics, or maybe it's all politics. Though it sounds like a simple question, there's no universally accepted answer. Depending on who you ask, you'll probably get a different answer. Now, for the sake of simplicity, we will start with a very basic scenario. It's economics for a single person. Now, just to give you a heads up, this is not a very common way to approach economics. Most courses start with economics for groups. But now let's start with economizing. What do we do when we economize? When we economize, we allocate our means to our desires. We all have goals and desires, things we'd like to achieve in our lives. But unfortunately, we are not omnipotent. We cannot simply snap our fingers and make our wishes come true. We must act, and our actions are limited. Every time we act, we must utilize our internal energy and other goods like food or machinery. These are what we call means in economics. Though our actions are limited, still, we can choose from many different ones in every moment. Like to eat, check my phone, write an email, go home, or call someone. And before we choose, we always estimate the outcomes. In our head, we play around with the idea what the costs and the returns of an action would be. Economizing is part of every action and every choice we make. It's similar to an autonomic function, like breathing, but it's more like a background process running on a computer. We economize when we watch a movie, buy a toy, or choose a career. When we choose a movie, we are also choosing not to watch other movies, or go out for dinner, or to play games. And when we choose a career path, we give up countless other paths. All of our choices include in themselves the alternatives we didn't choose, but we could have chosen. This is what we call opportunity cost. Before we choose, we must somehow rank our desires and means first. Once we know what we want and what we have, we can think about our choices. And before we decide what to do, we estimate the outcomes of our possible actions. Our means strongly determine our choices. And when we economize, we try to use them as best as we can. We can consume for a quick gain, or save for later in the future, or work to produce more, or study and practice to become better, or explore to know more, or just relax and recharge our batteries. This is what we do when we economize. Decide and calculate how to allocate our means. This whole process is similar to a journey. When you're planning your vacation, you have a lot of options. You can visit countless places and do many different things there. However, you cannot go to all places at once, and visiting them is not free either. It costs time, energy, and money. There are countless paths to each destination, but every path is different. For instance, we can get to our dream island by plane in a few hours, by car and ferries in a few days, or by hitchhiking and walking in a few months. The different paths require different means. And one reason to economize is to make sure that we have enough means to reach our destination. But of course, life is not about reaching a single goal. As we live, new goals and choices appear all the time. This is why we save, work, and study, to have enough resources when we face new goals and choices. Economizing is not only for mean and greedy people who just want all the money out there. Economizing is an essential part of life. Not even a Buddhist monk could survive without it. He also has desires, and his actions and means are also limited. And he must also choose from different options every moment. He consumes, saves, works, and studies just like the rest of us. Imagine a guy like Robinson Crusoe who's shipwrecked on a deserted island.
Oh, shit.
His desires are very simple. All he wants is going back home to his people. He doesn't have anything except his bare hands, time, and raw materials of the island. There are not that many things he can do. His means and choices are limited. And because of this, economizing for him seems simple. He cannot swim home. He can light a fire and hope that some nearby ships will find him, or he can try building a raft and sail home somehow. But no matter which one he goes for, most likely he will have to spend some time on the island. And he cannot work on a raft or sustain a fire for days without eating and sleeping. He must stop to rest and consume food to recharge his body. Eating and sleeping are other desires which he will have to satisfy every day. If it takes a year to build a raft or a ship to find him, he'll have to get food and shelter for a full year. But food is not that easy to find on a deserted island, and sleeping requires some work too, because he must find a safe place where he is not so exposed to the forces of nature. So economizing for him is getting a bit more complicated. So we suppose that he will need a year to build a raft or get noticed by nearby ships. But what if he uses a fishing net to get food faster, a rope to make the construction easier, and a hut to make him sleep better? These tools could increase the efficiency of his actions by lowering the time requirements and increasing the quality of the outcome. Maybe he could get home in 6 months instead of a year and stay healthier all along. But there's no hut, rope or net lying around. He must build them first. And while he's working on these goods, he's not working on a ship. It's a risky investment with a high potential return in the future. This is how Robinson economizes. First, he prioritizes his desires, then ranks his resources and options. He's rationing his existing means, saving what he can and consuming only what he must. He's also working on getting more means by fishing or collecting berries. And he can also invest into producing better tools which could improve his life in the future, like the fishing net or the shelter. The better he economizes, the longer he can stay alive, and the bigger his chances are that one day he can return to civilization. When we economize, we exchange. We would like to change our current state to another one we prefer more. In other words, we want to change our present to an imagined future. When we are tired, we would like to be rested. This is what we desire. This motivates us to act. And sleeping is the action. But it's not for free though. We must spend time and sometimes money to achieve it. These are the means we must give up to achieve our desire. We also call them costs. And what we get in exchange is called the return. The well-rested feeling after a good long sleep. Before we take any action, we evaluate our situation, our desires, means, and options. And based on this information and our expectations, we estimate the outcome of the actions we can choose. When we plan on going out for a Friday evening, we assess the company we are keeping, the places we can go, our money situation, other possible programs for the evening, and what we have to do the next day. This information helps us measure the costs and the benefits of the action. In other words, the outcome. No desire is free. We must give up something every time we choose. However, every choice has an expected benefit, something that is better for us than our current status. This is what we call the return of the action. And if the return is greater than the costs, the action is profitable for us. If we went out, had a great time with a great group of friends, didn't spend too much money, and didn't have to spend the following day in bed, then we are better off and happy with our choice. In other words, the action of going out was profitable. But if we decided to go, but didn't enjoy the company, spent way too much money, and had to take the next day off, then we probably wish we stayed home instead of going out. In this case, our action was a loss. The words profit and loss probably sounds misleading, because we use them mostly for making money and not for going out to have fun. However, profit means the net return of an action. This is what we end up with once a successful action is over. We could use a different word, just because profit is so often used in a negative way. However, using multiple words for the same idea would create unnecessary confusion later on. I think it's best to approach the word profit with an open mind and try to understand what's behind the concept, rather than using a substitute right from the beginning. Choice and action are the essence of life, and we economize every time we choose and act. When we brush our teeth, sleep, work, eat, date, or plant trees, we solve economic problems. Brushing our teeth makes us healthier. But in order to achieve this, we need resources: a toothbrush, toothpaste, and water. And we also must sacrifice a couple of minutes from sleeping. We also economize when we sleep. We allocate our limited time to get rested. The only time we do not economize is when something unexpected happens to us, or we do something accidentally. In these situations, we do not choose and cannot calculate the outcomes. Economizing is the process of resource allocation, and economics is the science that is observing this process. Ludwig von Mises, one of the iconic figures of the Austrian School of Economics, named this field praxeology, and the subject of it, purposeful human action. So, according to the Austrian school, every single action has an economizing part. It doesn't mean, though, that life is only about economizing. It's part of every choice and action, but it only focuses on what we have to pay and what we get in return for our actions, and how we can change that to our benefit. The question why we choose something and what should it be are not economic problems. So economizing is about allocating means to desires. Basically, we have our desires and means, and we rank both of them. Once we know what we want and what we have, we can choose an action to make it happen. We always have multiple choices in life, and before we choose, we always estimate the outcome. This information tells us if an action makes sense, which means if it has a positive net return. This process is part of everyone's life. It's running in our brain every time we make a choice, even at this moment. And economics is the science that is observing this process.